right, is the intro tip. All right, so podcast number whatever the hell it is, 3?
Number 3.
4.
Really?
We're in
Is
4.
it really 4?
Yes.
When do we have?
We
I thought we
recorded
only had-
the third one last week. Yes. And
did.
episode 2
The
is
Last of Us, Borderlands 3, and then the one we did last week. Yeah.
right. Right.
I
Okay,
don't
so
think was I there for the Borderlands one?
Yes.
yes.
It
Yeah,
was
we were.
the one we were
It
playing
was when
again,
you jumped in the middle of it. It's pretty funny because
That's why I didn't remember it.
Well, it wasn't the middle. Like, it was pretty close to the beginning, but it was
Yeah.
like a minute or two after we started.
yeah.
Right.
I made a little bit of a funny, like, your character, your little icon jumped in the middle of the fucking game, just like slid across the screen slowly.
Well, this is a fantastic intro to our podcast. Thank you for joining us, everybody.
Yes, welcome. You know me, Irish Frage, also known as
I
Sean.
I'm your friendly neighborhood antimatter burst. Please don't touch me, because everything explodes if you touch antimatter.
Indeed.
What's your real name?
I don't have a real name. My name is antimatter, okay?
It is actual antimatter.
It's actually, yeah, let's just go
Anti
with
of the matter.
Carlos de la Cruz.
Okay, what's your social security number?
Okay, well,
And your address?
my mother's
Credit card number? All that.
Here, I got it.
Just for the rundown.
The whole rundown.
Alright, I am Apollo, Deadlock Chaos in the PSN. We're back again, episode 4. Alright. We're bringing back D this episode. How's it going, D?
Hey, I go by D, or I go by a lot of AV-based screen names. I'm joining again. This is my second episode, and yeah, good to be here.
Nice.
All right. Okay, so our topics for today is actually continuation of things that we didn't get a chance to talk about last week. Basically, game of the year, but not really. More like as far as the year has
Well,
been.
it's game of the year so far, so it's like a game of the year watch episode. Like
Yeah.
What we've played
So
So it's
far.
like
halfway
game of-
through the year.
Game of the half year.
Game of the half year, yes. I agree. Yeah, and then let's see, what was the other topic other than
We
that?
might get into, depending on time or depending whether we split this up into 2 episodes, however we do it, we might do a series ranking, which I guess we probably should have come up with which series we're going to do before we start the recording.
Oh yeah, we could do it in our break. Well, I mean, usually we take a break anyway, so we could take a break. It was like a food break and drink break if we want to do it that way. It's free form, you know. It doesn't matter.
It is freeform, but we should probably have a little bit of planning beforehand.
Yeah,
We're assuming we're just gonna edit this part out, right?
yeah, I can
Sure,
edit it.
mean,
I can cut it out.
understand, but if we just have some sort of general outline, there's less need for editing.
We are.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Okay.
that's true.
But yeah, all right. So
Welcome back, everybody. Anyway.
yeah, we'll talk
Yes,
about our favorite.
All of you, 1 subscriber out there, thanks for listening again.
I know. Thanks, Mom.
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to
She's not
somebody that.
subscribed. You know she doesn't care.
Ouch.
God, it's great that you say that now because I wish I saved the previous recording. Because as soon as he came into the chat, he's just talking about how like another self-deprecating joke about his mom not loving him or something. I wish just deleted that, and I wish I saved it because then I could have had like I cut in a little bit of like a sad music with him talking about his mom not loving him or some shit.
Okay.
See, that's the comedy I would like to try and put together in this, because it's just when you're editing, and I know we're recording right now, but when you're editing something that is personally funny to you, and you just like want to put it in, you're trying so hard to fit it in, it's so funny. There's nothing more satisfying when you get something. I don't even fucking care if anybody like likes it. It's funny to me, kind of thing, when there's just hilariousness happening.
Okay,
Yeah.
I want to be clear to everybody that whenever I, talk shit about my mom, I basically make two moms. One, the jokey mom who's like the worst woman in the world, who used to tell me that men only wanted one thing, while drinking a bottle of vodka and a cigar and a cigar in the other hand.
And you have
And
your
my
fake.
actual mother, who's
Oh,
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
no, my
Okay.
actual mother, who is
They are not
actually a
actually
good
the same person,
person.
basically.
Yeah, exactly. They're not really the same person.
It's more like a kind of a more of a joke that you had like the best mom in the world, but you like making it sound like you had the worst.
I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say she's the best, but sure.
Oh
Yes.
God!
Sorry, mom. Sure, you're the best.
Oh man! Hey, we got our first feedback from one of our previous recordings. They really liked the really self-deprecating jokes that we throw in. Somebody actually said like it really took me aback when somebody was just they had a double take when they were listening. They were like, "What Tinder? What you said? What?" It was a joke that like Apollo just like randomly put in there. It was I can't even remember what it was. The reference was happening. It was I think of the
I
Last
feel
of
like
Us
a
one.
Tinder joke is always Carlos's territory. But who knows? I don't remember what I did.
I
this
will
morning,
make
so
sure I
no.
debase myself enough for this podcast.
It's great.
Anyways, game of the half year.
Oh yeah. Anybody want to go first? I would say, for me, game of the year would have to be. Let's see. For me, I want to say Death Stranding, but I already kind of said stuff about Death Stranding. But then,
I don't think you've said enough about Death Stranding. I still don't quite know your position on Death Stranding.
oh,
I thought okay.
Well,
I mean,
wait.
we kind of did
Why
talk
did
about it.
okay, here's my question. I mean, how would you rank it in terms of like all the other Kojima games that you
Oh,
played?
oh,
Okay, hang on. To
interesting.
preface for the audience, since Sean is choosing Death Stranding, he's because he's like finished playing it this year because it is from last year.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
just to preface that, yeah.
That's a good point too.
Oh, good. I
So
can bring up
so
next gen
anything
to say
that
good.
released this year, Final Fantasy VII released this year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, remake.
Right. And then Ghost of Tsushima I'm playing right now. Yes, the remake. Yes, sorry. Yes, the remake. I mean, I guess you can say, Final Fantasy VII really hit it for me this year. Just because obviously the nostalgia. In fact, we were talking about nostalgia train, right? Like I remember D was talking about how like nostalgia was definitely the market that a lot of those developers were kind of aiming for, and it's a market right for it, and I think
For the entire entertainment industry, not just games.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so I feel like I'm just gonna go with Final Fantasy VII in terms of this year. What really hit the nostalgia for me.
Mm.
I think they, and I really wish we could. I really wish like somebody else played it with is here right now because they can have like a different experience to say about it. But
I intend to play it before the end of the year, but yeah, I haven't even I didn't play the demo even so. Yeah.
I really like the demo. That actually turned me into a total believer.
I
And
Though I didn't play the game.
right like and that's another thing too. Like I want to hear from somebody that hasn't played the original.
yeah.
Like they play the now and then not like what kind of effect would it be on for them? Because definitely
Yeah, that's kind of why I want to play because I haven't played any Final Fantasy games, so I wanna see like I'm interested to see, but I mean I'm interested to see like how I feel about it. But that's also sort of the reason why I've been more reticent about like getting around to it. But
mhm.
I assume probably after I like play through Ghost of Tsushima, I want to play through that and like finally get to Breath of the Wild as well.
Yeah, pretty much I'm on the same board with you, Apollo. I have never really played. Well, I played Final Fantasy 13, so I can safely say that I haven't played any Final Fantasy games other than pressing forward and X. So I'm interested in knowing in getting to know what this what is it gonna be? Without the nostalgic, goggles on. Just because I already know some of the twists. I mean, the big, thing about Ares dying. Like I think everybody knows that. There's not a
Spoilers.
spoiler
The
there. Come on,
It's
you
a
watch
3-year-old game, dude. It's still new.
you watch Final Fantasy Advent Children.
I
You
did.
should know.
I mean, yeah, everybody knows the big twists of Final Fantasy VII, even if you've never played the game.
Right. But yeah, I'd say that for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're saying Death Stranding would probably be one of your game of the years, simply because you played it this year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of hit a high note in terms of just like the more that art feel to it. It's not there for any like shock value or like it was definitely not serving any sort of like for-profit situation where it's like
Oh, I think
like
we're all happy that it existed. Even I was happy that it was going to exist, even if I thought from the get-go, oh, this is going to be a total, freight train. Like I thought it was going to be a disaster, and it turned out to be a, really interesting disaster.
yeah, it's not like it wasn't like something that like it became divisive in the sense that like obviously like we already talked about the whole like it does not look fun to play type of situation. Like, is this even a game if it's not fun to play?
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of people who played it, it wasn't fun to play. But
Right,
a lot
yeah.
of people who did play it really, they went in thinking like even people who weren't fans of Kojima or Metal Gear before, they went in thinking like I'm not gonna like this game, but I don't know, I got to review it or I got to do a guide for it or something, or I just want to play it to like be in the zeitgeist of everything, and they ended up playing it and just like falling in love with it. So it's
Right.
it's interesting, and like. I am glad it exists as well, even though I haven't played it yet either, specifically because of what we talked about last week about it not looking fun to play. But I do still, I still probably will get to it. But I just love Kojima, and I love him being sort of the folk hero of the game industry, where it's like he's just pushing the envelope, even if it's like in a way that you might not like. You can't really like say that he's not pushing things in a direction that no one else is. Like he really is a visionary.
He really is the David Lynch of like video games.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
He's
Definitely.
very Death Stranding is kind of the Twin Peaks of games.
Seriously.
Yeah,
I'm glad
and
that you made a comparison that wasn't involved in Dark Souls, by the way.
and lastly, the reason why I don't say Last of Us hitting that echelon of or like why Death Stranding would go over that and why Final Fantasy would over Last of Us is that I guess I can't say there's a moment in a game in Last of Us where I was like oh fuck I did that, like that. So I have this. I don't even know if I saved it. I have this video of me in Final Fantasy remake, and I'm sorry if you haven't played it. It's not a story plot point, but there is basically a really fucking hard boss to fight, and you get a really awesome summon, which is Bahamut, and I was playing and fighting that on it wasn't on the recommended level. Like most guides, I think said that you have to be like 40 something and above or close to 50 to really beat it, and you have to be kind of geared for it because there is basically a kill-all move that he does, and it's a counter. So you're like having this counter looming over your head that he's going to do this really explosive damage and kill everybody in your team type of situation, and you have to kill him before he does that. But I have a video of where I ended up defeating him only because my carbuncle summon happened to be active, and when it happens, when it kills all my team members, while that summon's active, it revives everybody, or it revives one of my teammates. I can't remember if it's like everybody, but it's definitely one of my teammates at least. And I was able to reset the timer, revive my teammates, and then kill him in the end. And that was just like a fuck like moment where it's like the hardest boss in that game that I was fighting, and I was just being so adamant, like I'm going to beat him now before the end of the story, and fucking be jacked up near the end of the game, and that
Well, that's
moment.
really cool that you were able to like get something out of the game. Like you have like a specific memory that just belongs to you. You know.
Exactly. That's my point. Yeah.
Right.
Whereas Last of Us.
That's powerful. I totally get that.
Yeah, like as much as like Last of Us, everybody had a different experience and stuff like that. I kind of feel like I needed some insane uh insane like gameplay moment to kind of make me go like, oh fuck, that was like insane, like I could have done this kind of thing, but it wasn't like that for Last of Us. It's more like the story experience. So that's really the only reason I would say that like kind of upped it just a tiny bit. Like it's pretty damn close. I still respect and love that game, Last of Us, but definitely Final Fantasy kind of hit this moment of like oh shit kind of thing. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people end up remembering games like The Last of Us because of the story rather than the gameplay.
I mean, that's how most people remember it for sure. Like even if you like the gameplay, like the gameplay is not remarkable. Like it's not like it's not necessarily the standout. Even though they did improve it, I feel like, and they refined it, and it feels fun to play. But it's not even the first one. Like the first Last of Us is one of my favorite games ever. But I don't really play it for the gameplay. Like it's not the thing that like stands out to me.
Honestly, that I actually did end up liking this one better than the first one as far as the gameplay, just because it was refined.
Sure, yeah.
But I was surprised that I actually ended up liking it more than the gameplay more than the Uncharted 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had more fun just being creative, killing things around, and there was just another. It just felt like it was a bit more engaging than a lot of the things that you end up doing in Uncharted 4. Maybe because, I don't know. When it comes to Uncharted 4, I felt that it was disappointing to me.
A lot of people felt that way.
Yeah, too many times in that game. Why are there so many sirens around my house?
We can't
too
hear
many
it.
times in that. You guys can hear it, right? Oh, okay. Go.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, too many times in Uncharted 4, like I was disappointed that in places where you do like platforming and stuff, it never really felt challenging. It always felt like there were just this kind of token moments of like gameplay that that you just gotta get through in order to get through the story. But
right.
Yeah, but I guess that it was The Last of Us more deliberate pacing that just allowed me to like get more into the world itself. And then when it came to like the big high octane moments of action, that's where I could just express myself however I wanted.
Right.
Do you think at all that maybe the difficulty had anything to do with it? Because you played it in the lowest difficulty in order to get through the story faster, right?
Oh yeah. So yeah, when I was playing it so that Brenda could also experience the story with me, I put on the lowest difficulty because I knew that like it's just she's gonna get bored of just the story's not moving on forward. She's just gonna see me kind of like, hold up a minute, let me click this. Hold up a minute, let me click this, and then hold up a minute, let me fucking kill this fucking guy after the 20th time, whatever. Sneaking around forever. Yeah.
It is actually, that's a good point actually, because I played it on very easy. Like I think like on my second run through to get the platinum, I played it like all the way up until like Abby's day 2, and like it is very different than playing it on normal. Like it like I don't know, like it's I mean, because normal obviously is the way that the developers like intended it to be played. Like that's the most balanced mode. But like playing it on very easy, it's definitely like it's just easier to flow through because it's easier and it's easier to get through the encounters and stuff. But it is interesting just because it takes away a lot of the challenge, and it's definitely a different experience for sure.
Yeah.
Like Yeah,
I agree with that. The one big difference too here is that Bahamut in Final Fantasy had no story aspect to it. That was a choice I made myself. So it wasn't that I had to go through that to get to the story or get to the end.
sure.
Whereas in Last of Us, there wasn't that thing holding me back. Like there wasn't like something that was pushing me forward that was like some impossible task that I could choose to do if I was on my own. There's no like
Sure.
secret thing there, and like that is the hardest thing in the game. So it wasn't. Yeah, for those reasons, yeah, Bahamut was
I mean, that's just
was
based on
different,
the type of that they're two very different types of games as well. Though.
right? And it's not like the game had this thing where like you had to go and do something to some fucking insanely powerful dude to get like the best weapon or something like that. It was kind of just walking around scavenging half the time, which of course that's part of the game. I get it, like, but yeah, that I don't think that challenge would have changed if I made it harder or less difficult or more difficult.
It's just because there's not. Yeah, they're different types of games. There's not like bosses like that. Like it's just not that kind of game.
Right.
I don't know.
Like regardless of difficulty.
Plus, also Bahamut is a pretty freaking good reward, by the way. Not to mention, what Bahamut is too. Like, there's also that nostalgia too, knowing that you're fighting this really powerful dragon that you remember using before. So yeah.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. I was totally nullifies the point that I was gonna make. That sometimes a higher difficulty or just trying to finding something that's challenging that you don't know how to progress through just kind of forces your hand into finding new different avenues of tackling that very same thing.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's I have talked about this with you guys in the past, but that's one of the appeals of trophy hunting for me, and specifically with good like trophy lists. Was that like it challenges you to play the game not just on harder difficulties, but in different ways that you otherwise wouldn't have even thought to play them in.
Yeah. I had that experience with the first Last of Us because I always played it in the normal difficulty. I had a friend who was playing it in like the highest difficulty, and she wasn't very good at it. So while I started playing it with her, like I realized that like, oh shit, you have like 2 bricks to kill like 16 guys. How do I do this?
Yeah, and there's no listen mode or anything. Yeah,
yes. I love that. By the way,
it's really fun. It was really fun. That first one, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in trying to in going through this to The Last of Us 2 again in the hardest difficulty because I heard that the AI is also more sophisticated. They do more. They're more aware of you and they do more.
Yeah.
They act a little bit more like like humans do, for lack of a better word. And trying to detect you. So I'd like to see what that's like.
All right. So, D'Angelo, what's your game of the year so far?
I don't believe in 2020. It was a terrible. All I'm
God,
say is
I love your responses.
2019 because this whole year has been on sleep mode for me, so I can't say something that's disingenuous because it's like I could say Trials of Mana, but I didn't pick that up yet. I'm only going by like what I like from the Super Nintendo version, and I can't say Animal Crossing because I don't invest in that series. So I'm going to just go with what I know, which is going to be A Link Between Worlds, because Link's Awakening wasn't really my favorite Zelda game when it came out, but I did appreciate the Game Boy Color version, and I loved the hell out of it on the Switch because the controls were more like playing a game on Super Nintendo. Like, they had some quality life changes. One of the things I always hated about the Game Boy Zelda games is that you had to switch between buttons for when you had the sword out and when you had the feather out. And having extra buttons actually does improve on the gameplay because you now have reassigned buttons to Pegasus boots, the sword, the shield, and all that. So you don't have to have this extra layer of tedium in the dungeons where you're just sorting through your items, going like, "Oh, I'll switch to this, I'll switch to that." Because anyone who played the original games on Game Boy dealt with that. And like, look, I like the games. I really do for what they were, but it's just having those extra buttons at least makes it a bit more simple to deal with. I mean, I breezed through that game in one weekend instead of just like taking weekends to go through dungeons, all because I would get myself killed over swapping between sword and items. Like, oh shit, I need to switch that out. Get killed by a moblin or a slime or whatever. Just like, oh shit.
Mm.
So yeah, there were less deaths. I actually managed to beat it without dying. Not on hero mode. I'm not that great. I'm just a casual. But like, yeah, I actually managed to beat it without dying, and they did still do the reward where you beat the game without dying. Of course, I cheesed a lot of Crazy Tracy's potions just to keep alive, or and all that. But hey, I technically didn't die, and I saved before any possible death. So
Hey, a
you
no
know,
death run is a no death run. That's
exactly.
all.
Mm-hmm.
You should have twitched that. I love Link's Awakening. That was a really good. That was a really fun game.
I love it too. It's I love the Game Boy Color version. Like that's one of the. I think that's the only one of the only two Zelda games I've actually played all the way through. That and Link to
And
the
it is
Past.
heavily based on the Game Boy Color version. It even has that dungeon where you get the two tunics, one for attack, one for defense. So
Right.
it know its aim quite well.
Mhm.
How are close are the dungeons? Like I never played the original for the Game Boy. I only played the remake. So, um, I mean, I was overall impressed by looking at like the layout of the basic layout of the land and seeing the remake and seeing those comparisons and like realizing that like, oh wow, like pretty much the whole layout of the island really holds up even in like 2019.
Yeah, it does. I'd say the biggest change is just the visuals, really, because everything looks like it's claymation, even though it's like 3D.
Right.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I
but
love the look.
again, like it's just dungeons are just way easier to navigate because, like I said, the control scheme made a huge difference here.
Nice.
Nice.
All right. What about you, Carlos? Game of the year so far.
Knack 2 for sure.
That
I
wasn't
mean,
this year.
you-
And
it's
get
the
out.
game of every year. There's no such thing as time when it comes to Knack 2. It's just it's just the year of it's the year. It's the game of the fourth dimension. But honestly, I'm impressed. I'm surprised that I ended up liking The Last of Us the most this year so far.
Mm.
I don't think I've played the through that many years games this year, but
Yeah. Same.
The Last of Us um just captivated me from the get go. I started playing it. I didn't stop playing it until I finished the game. Um,
Nice.
yeah, I enjoyed the story, even though as we've argued before, there's a lot of like pacey issues with it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was fun. Like I'm excited to go to replay it and to just see just how much more I can get out of that game. But I'm also excited to play the Assassin's Creed because it's nice to like get into a franchise that you've always liked but you left behind for a while and then get back into it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
It's like finding a nice, a shirt you haven't, worn in a while, and you wear it again. You're like, oh, fits nice, good. I feel comfy in this.
And you're getting back in Odyssey, which is, in my opinion, and I think a lot of people's opinions. Well, I mean, it's pretty divisive, I guess, but like in a ton of people's opinions, Odyssey is like kind of the best the Assassin's Creed has ever been. So it's yeah. I'm interested to see what you think of it when you're like further in.
Honestly, because I'm playing Odyssey as well, I was afraid to start playing Ghost of Tsushima just because um, I've heard so much from so many reviewers say that their uh, Ghost of Tsushima's version of the open world is much more sophisticated than the Ubisoft type of open world, that kind of template that we've grown so accustomed to with not just the Assassin's Creed franchise, but with most of the other open world type of games.
Yeah.
But they're both different games, and I think you can like them for both, for in their own way, for they're both different style of games that they are.
Mm.
I mean, we'll get into more of a discussion of Ghost of Tsushima once we've all played the game, but
Yeah.
Yeah,
uh,
I'll say at least that it might one up my top for this year, just because what I'm experiencing it so far. So hint hint.
You can always have like an end of the year recap of this.
Yeah, of course.
Well, yeah. Again, this is just the game of the year so far. It's not obviously the year's only half over, so like we'll probably towards the end of the year actually like say our actual game of the full year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the game of the half year, so it probably just means that it's just half as good as it should be.
Right.
I suppose.
That's how math works. Okay, how about you, Apollo?
I'm gonna give a shout out to The Last of Us. It was great. I don't really have anything else to say about it other than what we've already said. I thought it was a great follow up to the first one. Naughty Dog is amazing as always. I also want to give a quick shout out to Doom Eternal because that game was fucking something. It was something else. It was a
You
great
finished
game.
it, right?
Oh yeah, I finished it, and we've talked about this off the air, but like I still think Doom 2016 is a bit better, just because I feel like that game didn't wear out its welcome for me, whereas Doom Eternal did in its last few hours, where it just I felt like the design, the level design, and the way the enemy placements, and there was just too many demons on screen, and I just felt like the design just sort of fell apart. Whereas I felt like the first 12 hours of Doom Eternal were excellent and really hard, and it's one of the few games where I felt like my brain had to fire on all cylinders at all times, otherwise I would be fucked. Like it was literally like every arena, it's just like you have like 10 different weapons, you're fighting like 50 demons at once coming from like all directions. There's like jump pads and all these things, and my eyes are just darting on every like corner of the screen constantly, and I'm switching weapons, and it's just like you have to think constantly. And after a while, it becomes like, how am I doing this? Like, how am I even alive? Like, there's so much going on. I'm switching weapons. I'm killing this guy. I'm jumping away from this guy. I'm chainsawing this guy. I'm like meleeing this guy, getting a fucking glory kill from this guy to get my, and chainsawing this guy to get ammo back. And there's so much going on that like it's after a while, and obviously the game like it starts off really hard, and it just gets harder and harder and harder as it goes on, and it just felt like it felt like an accomplishment when I beat that game. It was like, oh man, like
I was gonna ask you of that last boss fight, because that last boss fight
that
was
was
just
okay. That was shit. The last boss fight was shit, honestly.
oh my,
I
it was
didn't.
just
But again, that sort of follows what I was saying about like the last few hours in general being like that, where there was just like I felt like the first 12 hours were well designed, and then the last few hours, including that last boss, were like, okay, let's just throw a bunch of enemies at the player. Like, fuck design. Let's just throw as many fucking things. Like, it was literally because like I was talking to you guys about this before when the game when like we all first finished the game, where it was like, I was stuck. Like, it literally got to a point where it was just like I was dying because I was getting stuck on the number of enemies that were on the screen. There were so many enemies piling on me that I would die again and again and again because I couldn't move. Like, no matter how many bullets I sprayed at them, like my chainsaw, nothing. And it was just so frustrating that I had to like bump it down to very easy just because I wanted to just like finish the fucking game. Like it drove me insane. But yeah, like okay, those are my shoutouts. But my main favorite game of the year is
It's Animal Crossing.
God no, how dare you? But no, my favorite game of the year is Resident Evil 3. It's still my favorite Resident Evil 3 remake.
Oh, that's right. Resident Evil 3?
Yeah.
That was this year.
Yeah, on April 3rd. It's fantastic. It's my favorite. I've always loved Jill Valentine, but this is definitely the best iteration of her. She's so like at every single like I swear to God, every few minutes in that game, I was just like, my God, she's so cool. Like I was just geeking out so hard about like everything she was saying and the shit she was doing, and it's just so like it's classic Resident Evil like fucking camp and stuff, but it's so good. Like it's just like something that definitely the Resident Evil series has lost as time has gone on. Is that nice middle ground of campiness but badassness at the same time. I love Nemesis. Like I know a lot of people had problems with them about a lot of the fights being scripted and stuff, but I personally liked the mix of scripted fights and like just unscripted fights. Like because it kind of felt like because Resident Evil 2 was actually my favorite game. Resident Evil 2 Remake was my favorite game of last year, and he had Mr. X and he was intimidating as fuck and he was scary, but I feel like Mr. X to Nemesis was kind of like Terminator, like the T-800 in the first Terminator compared to T-1000 and T2, where it's like Mr. X is intimidating, but he's pretty dumb. Like he's easy to like cheese and get around, whereas like Nemesis, he keeps evolving and he's constantly he really is relentless. Like he really just like doesn't fucking stop. And like you can shoot him and like get packs out and you can stun him and stuff, but like you have to adapt your playstyle like from the playstyle that you were using against Mr. X, where it's just like, okay, I can run around him, I can run away from him, and it'll be fine. With Nemesis, if you try to run, he'll jump in front of you and block your way. If you try to run, he'll shoot you. If you try to run, he will grab you and pull you back. Like you have to fight him, and I really like that.
That's actually one of my complaints with that, with Resident Evil 3, that a lot of the times I just wanted to fight him and see if I could get more, items out of him. But there are some scenes in which you don't fight him. There are some parts in which you just run. Okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, there definitely are like where he's shooting you with the rocket launcher and stuff. I feel like that's, but I mean, I like that too, though, because it adds sort of the urgency to it. Like sometimes you can fight him, and it's more of a risk, and you're going to be using more ammo and stuff. It's the classic Resident Evil survival horror thing. But sometimes like you just can't fight him. Like you're in an alley, there's fucking zombies around you, there's dogs fucking barking at you and shit, trying to chase you, and he's just shooting rockets at you, and it's just like, okay, like I have to run. Like there's nothing I can do. And I enjoyed that, and I think the original Resident Evil 3 for me was like, it's definitely one of the weaker classic Resident Evil games. I remember it, and I remember it being okay, but it wasn't like amazing, like something like Code Veronica or 4 or 2 were, like the original ones. But with this, they really made like. They really truncated the experience. I know a lot of people felt it was too short. I didn't. Like I felt like a 7-hour run in Resident Evil game works for me, and I always want quality over quantity anyway. So like the original game there was a lot of filler in there. Like there's a lot of stuff where it's just like this is an open world, but it doesn't need to be. Like there's nothing really here that's that interesting. I really felt like the remake just made a great game out of just an okay game, like the original game was. So, yeah, that's still my top game of the year. I absolutely love it.
You think it's gonna be topped this year?
Maybe. I mean, we still got
you still haven't started Ghost.
I haven't started Ghost of Tsushima yet. Hopefully, I'll start that this week, and then we got Cyberpunk, maybe if that ever comes out, and then. Assassin's Creed is.
Oh,
around
that's right.
on-
I forgot Cyberpunk was coming out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they filmed it a million times.
Yeah.
I know, right?
And then we got Miles Morales Spider-Man coming out around launch as well. So yeah, there's still a bunch of stuff coming out this year. So we'll see.
Hope for the future.
Yeah.
Yep. No dry season. Thank you.
Not right.
Yay.
Huh. I mean, of course, there's got to be the new season of Destiny, which we're all going to join in.
Oh yes.
For our listeners, I always mention Destiny because that's actually how we started playing all together.
Yeah, that was my first PS4 game.
Honestly, I think that's my favorite memory about Destiny, the friends we made along the way.
Yeah.
I mean, the friends we already had, but played together.
But we do have like love-hate relationship. I love it. They hate it.
Well, I definitely hate it for sure. But yeah, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed the campaign of Destiny 2 a lot more than the
Like
first
we
one.
definitely went through it. We didn't get to finish the raid or anything like that, but we
Right.
experienced parts of it at least.
Yeah.
Um,
And again, as we've said many times, like if we had enough people that were like our friends that were playing it like, enough to like level up enough, I would love to go through those raids someday, but I just don't think it's gonna happen.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, again, when we talked about it in the Borderlands episode, it's this gatekeeping that happens that is based on these arbitrary numbers that really in the end doesn't mean much, because if you can't follow simple direction, who gives a fuck about your gear score? Like as much as like we had chances to get through things with like randoms that we would not, they're not randoms necessarily, but we had to like coordinate a way to find these people to play with just to get in it.
The matchmaking in the game is garbage. Like
Yes.
You can't actually matchmake for the raid unless you do it through the app on the phone. Like it's ridiculous. Like it's just such a bullshit system that they got there that they still haven't fixed.
Yeah, basically it was like, why do we have to get through these extra steps just to get through these things that should have been just like as easy as just matchmake, just press a button. Why is this not in here? It's this kind of false sense of difficulty or false sense of like security in the game where they're trying to say that it's like, oh, this is such a difficult part of the game that only experienced people can go, so that's why we're not putting matchmaking, so you don't just get randoms, you have to go in with a full team. I'm like, why can't we just have the random people in there and then just work with the people that we have? Like, you're basically, what if I don't want to like do that? Like, I don't want to have to go through and find the people and go through this issue of like, finding out that maybe we're just not gelling as a team,
But that's the thing. They just made it so hard to just play the game. Like, I just want to play the game with my friends. Like, that's all I want to do. And it's just like, well, okay, you can do it after these processes 3. And I'm just like, give me a break. What the fuck is this? Like, it's like I'm fucking sitting in front of Gollum doing the riddles. Like, I'm like, just let me play the game. I don't care about, like, any of this.
Yeah. There's a gatekeeping part, but I mean, we still played through the game quite a bit. We beat the main campaign and we got through like majority of the content, except for some of the DLC. I think for Destiny 2, I think like it had a good I remember coming back for Taken King, and then they did things well there. Like the story was like more existent, I guess. Than just kind of me being a foggy passenger on this, like, just littered with lore that there was no other reference to the lore other than the website. But like, there was just some negatives for that. The gameplay was fun in the aspect that, like, we felt that the shooting felt good. And then, like, it's one of those things where if you think more about it, I think that the worse it gets when you really just like okay, the gunfights, and the I played the PvP, and that was fun, but then at the same time, you have other games that could do the same thing, and if not just as well,
and do it better.
and do better, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, again, love-hate relationship. It's one of those things. I think it's more like we love Destiny for what they tried doing, and then we wanted to keep doing better. It's kind of like that thing where you're like, come on, guy, do better. Like, I love you, but you're really not doing the right things here. It's kind of like you're trying to give support to something that just keeps failing you. Is it like maybe like a bad relationship? It's like, oh, I'm going to keep playing with you because I know I can fix you.
No, I mean that was. I think that was you guys. It was more like for me, it was a relationship I was in for 3 weeks, and I was just like, all right, go fuck yourself.
It's like I'm done. Yeah. I mean, that's the best way to describe it in terms of like describing the people that kept coming back.
I put so much time into those relationships, so much effort, and you give me nothing but just repeat performances that are trash. Like I'm done.
Yeah. Oh, also, there's another thing too to mention is that there's also like, if you're just not into that type of game, there's also like that like Boris is really like into RPGs, and like he will always like go for that next powerful weapon or farm for that. You know what I mean? Like farming is okay to him.
Well, I mean, yeah, he's totally fine with the busy work of it, and I totally get that. Like, that's fair, but, like, if I'm bored...
It's relaxing, right.
Yeah,
for him,
for sure. I can understand, like, and I'm with that certainly with some games as well, like, where, I put on... If I'm, like... I mean, we were just talking about Odyssey. It wasn't Odyssey, but the one before that, Origins. Like, I remember when I was platinuming that game and going through, like, the sort of the end game and getting, like, clean up trophies. I just, put podcasts on and just...
Oh yeah.
Turn the sound off and just it's cathartic for
sure.
Yeah. There's something to that for sure. But yeah, with things like Destiny, where I'm just you put in so much time and like you just keep getting like the same pair of shoes 5 times, and you just want like a better pair of shoes to level you up enough to do the raid, but they don't give it to you, and you have to keep doing the same nightfalls, and there's not enough content there to begin with to even like have it be fun for more than a few hours without having to go through recycled material. It just becomes very, very old for me, like really fast. And like, especially when there's like better games out, I'll go to those other games pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. I definitely agree on that. Yeah, definitely if that kind of thing just does not gel with you, then yeah, definitely don't stick with it. It's it wore me out. It definitely. I don't think I played anything past that. Was that DLC in Destiny 2? Something about...
It was, yes, there was something, the Rise of Osiris, or the...
Yeah. I played that one, and I was all like, okay, yeah, I can't play this anymore.
And then there was Warmind as well, but...
Yeah, that one, I have no idea about that one. I haven't even touched that either. Yeah, it was...
I always liked the lore in that game.
Yeah, you know,
I wish they actually went deep into it. Like
right.
That's my thing. Like it's like they had some really cool surface level stuff, and it's like, man, I can't wait to learn more about this. Oh,
this
isn't
character,
more about
yeah,
this.
Yeah.
Cool.
like this XYZ character or whatever. Yeah, I mean, to draw it back in, since I have like been watching my previous like podcasts too. Like, we have these other games that like play into lore in different ways, and it's interesting if you think about it. Like, there's a lot of games that they will approach lore in different ways. So let's go by some of them. So Bloodborne and Dark Souls is inside the items that you collect. There's lore like from Uncharted, where you have dialogue that kind of like they're talking about some of the background stuff. You don't need to know them necessarily, but it adds more to the story. What else is there? There's also the notes in Resident Evil. It kind of gives that excess creepiness where you're writing these fucking insane notes about what previously happened to somebody else or an insane guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
You know-
there's what else is there? There's other games that does lore in different ways, right? So like side missions, maybe open world stuff too.
Yeah, I mean that's the good old, pre-recorded messages
Oh
that
yes,
people
like
just leave around, like in Bioshock
like
Infinite.
Bioshock Infinite. Yes, that's the
Yeah.
perfect one. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
another one.
Bioshock with the fucking the audio logs. Those are
Yeah.
great. You have things like classic Fallout games where like the side missions and the exploration is like that's the point. Like that's why you play the games.
Right, right.
Because that's like, the main story is fine, but like that's why you play the game. Same thing with Skyrim and things like that. So yeah, I mean I feel like it's not hard to do. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's easy, but I feel like if you actually put the time and effort into it, it's not hard to like have a robust like library of lore there. I just feel like Bungie just hasn't put the time into it. Like that's just not what they focus on.
Right, or like to be able to put it in there, like in the game itself, in the sense that it's not like just something you read, maybe. Um, but yeah, I think there's something to be said about different productions too, about like when they approach trying to implement the story, or maybe there's like they have that one guy making the story, taking so much time and investment into it, but then they realize, oh right, we need to put it in the game.
I mean, they didn't bother with the first game. Remember? They just like put
Yeah.
it on some sort of cards that you saw on the website, the Grimoire cards.
Yeah, yeah.
On the Story of Destiny. Go to the website. That totally didn't work. I think that from the little bit that I've gotten to play on my PC is they found a way to put some of that lore inside the game, but honestly, I haven't even bothered.
Oh, the like most recent stuff.
Yeah, they bothered.
They found a way, like what? like,
Like, yeah, like they actually give you articles that will have like like there's some items that will say the so of of the darkness, and it'll it will have it listed like Dark Souls does it, where they have an item that has like lore behind it.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay,
it's
okay.
again, it can be very simple. You don't need to overcomplicate it. Like we were saying with the notes in Resident Evil, or even the audio logs in Bioshock. Like I know a lot of people are down on audio logs, but like I would rather have. I like audio logs, and I would rather have audio logs or even notes or anything explaining the lore in Destiny rather than just nothing, or rather than grimoire cards, or rather than just like this half baked like stuff that they've given us.
Um, you know, on that topic, it's just interesting how um, we're still developers are still trying to find a way, to deliver a story in their games, um, despite the fact that in the most effective way, right? Like sometimes it's really hard to.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you can't just use sometimes you don't want to just use a cutscene. Sometimes you don't want to, just
Right.
tell dialogue in the middle of the action. I don't know. Sometimes actually just reading it, is the most effective way of actually, getting part of that story.
Yeah, I mean sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. Just
Yeah.
reading stuff like it. It all depends. It's very situational and it depends on how well the developer does it and how well it integrates into the main game and whether it's compartmentalized from the gameplay sections or not. Like there's so many different factors that go into it. But yeah, I do always like it when developers at least try to if there's a robust story behind everything, at least they try to put some of that in the game rather than just just half-assing it.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we only have to look at something like, again, The Last of Us, the very first game being like the epitome of like storytelling. That one part in which you pretty much piece everything that happened together in the sewers, where there's
With
a whole.
with Ish and the family. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Like
that's great.
it's the kind of stuff where like you don't see a single cutscene related to that, but you
It's
piece the
all
entire thing together.
storytelling through the notes and like seeing the bodies and stuff.
Like I think that's one of my favorite storytelling in video games, like environmental storytelling, simply because
Yeah,
it's a way to integrate like storytelling with as you play the game, and
right.
I think that's one of the hardest things that I don't think anybody has quite managed to be able to fully integrate the story and with the gameplay itself.
I have an interesting topic that it just came up out of my head just now. Was what is your favorite lore? What game has you like the best lore? You love it and you just follow everything, because I feel like everybody has a different answer here.
Yeah,
and we could like, if you can't think of it right now, it's all good. We could digest it. And we, if everybody wants to take a break, we could do that too.
We've been at it for an hour. Oh, that's cool.
It's the way I'm gonna cut it up. It's probably gonna be a little bit less than an hour, but yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we could.
I'd say let's go on break first, and then we'll reconvene.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to the Goob Squad.
Goob o'clock. Come back at Goob o'clock.
Yeah, let's say. We're not just good, we are Goob.